Should I
Okay, I already started.
Okay. This is my grandfather, Apo. I'll be interviewing him about the Cold War. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Since I've known you for 16 years.
17, I'm 17.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So Apo, what is your strongest memory about the Cold War?
Well, of course, it started after the Second World War, so probably up until 7 or 8, I never even thought about it. I mean, it just weren't. It didn't matter. But I don't know. I guess the strongest memory would probably be the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty hairy. And the rest of the time, I guess, prior to that, we just knew that the Russians and us didn't get along too well, especially politically. But there were, quite a few things that were significant.
Okay. Were you scared during the Cuban Missile Crisis?
I don't know. It's funny. I remember a lot about that. I remember I was a freshman at Colgate University, and that was when it broke out. And I don't know if I was scared, but I had these. I think we all did. We all just had never experienced anything like this, and I kept having these images of missiles flying over the mountains at our college or thing. I mean, it was obviously far-fetched, but it was on everybody's mind. I mean, it was a showdown. The fact that the Russians had put all those missiles in Cuba, and then Kennedy called. I guess we could say called Khrushchev's bluff, but I think people were very concerned, and I think people like me. I was 18 years old at the time,
mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was concerning.
What do you remember about the Bay of Pigs invasion?
It's really funny when it happened. It was just that they got slaughtered. I mean, I remember that part of it. The fact that the rebels who were trying to the supporters of Batista and were trying to wrestle power away from Castro, and when it happened, of course, they got obliterated. And as time went on, and much later, you began to realize that at least from what I understood, that it was just a complete failure on part of the Kennedy administration, and they just basically I don't think, from my point of view, I don't think they ever thought it out, and they went in there and just got wiped out.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Were you prepared to go fight for your country during the Cold War?
Oh, I don't think I thought about it. I don't think that was something we all thought about. There was a draft then.
Were you part of
when I got out of Colgate, I wanted to go in the service. I still think that I couldn't get in because I was too tall. I was 6'8", and you couldn't get in over 6'6". And when I graduated, I thought that would be a pretty good thing to do, was to go in the service as a second lieutenant, and not as a career, but help me get started. But of course, you think that you were, I think everybody thought that if something really bad happened, we would definitely, my uncle went and fought for our country, and my father and mother were involved, and I had aunts and uncles who were involved in the Second World War, so we just grew up with a tremendous feeling of patriotism.
Mm-hmm. Were you part of the draft for the war?
Well, the draft wasn't so much for the war. The draft was more for the Vietnam War. It was then the Cuban Missile Crisis. And the draft had I remember they had a lottery, and I think that was when I was in college, if I remember. And if you got your lottery number was low, you were going into the service. But I didn't. I didn't want to. Would I have wanted to got drafted? No, I would have rather enlisted. I mean, I would have enlisted if I could have, but I was too tall. I tried to, but I had a lot of at the time. I had a really good friend from Sweden who was older than me. He was about, I think, Bjorn was probably about 26 at the time, and in Sweden they had what they called universal service, and having taught and things like that, I've always thought that would be a really good thing. If everybody in the country at the age of, say, when you get out of high school, has to give a year to the country, whether it be in the service or in various, like Peace Corps, things that were helping society. I know I went to college, and the first year, 2 years of my college was basically just, I was there to play basketball, and I didn't really take my education seriously, and I think it would have been and in contrast to that, I had a brother, and my brother Andy, he didn't go to college till he was 22 years old, and he really got a lot more out of his college education than I did, and I think that not necessarily the draft, but some form of service would be good. So to kind of expand on that thing. So yeah.
Did you have any friends in the war in Vietnam?
Yeah, I had a couple high school buddies that went in, and I had a very dear friend of mine that now is a very good friend of mine who served in Vietnam, and I have a sales rep friend who was a fighter pilot in Vietnam, and my friend he was in the Marine Corps, and he received a Purple Heart in Vietnam. But it's funny. I mean, we're really good friends, and we see each other a lot. But I don't think we've ever really talked about that. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's something that people that are involved in war and just don't want to talk. Just don't talk about it, because it's pretty horrific. And but would I have if I had to? Sure, I would have. And Vietnam was, that's probably one of in the Cold War idea, if that was the Cold War, but it basically, really tore the country apart, and I don't know if we've ever recovered.
Do you think it was worth the United States going to war in Vietnam? Do you think they went for a good reason?
Oh, I don't know. It's, that's one of those questions when you're, when you're on the sidelines and so far away from power that I really don't know if I could give a really intelligent answer to that. All I know is that, did I support the boys over there? Yeah, of course I did. It really bothered me when these guys would come back from the war and would be chastised by people. And some of the people that I went to college with were some of the people, doing the chastising. And I just, I lost a lot of respect for those people at that time. And I don't know whether the war was right, I don't know whether it was wrong, but I know that if I have friends or there's just young men over there that are there by not their choice, then I just have to support them. And I think that goes back, I lost an uncle who I saw once. I was a little baby, so I obviously don't remember him, but I lost him, and my family lost him in January of 1945 in the Philippines. And I don't think our family, especially his mom and dad and my mom, I don't think they ever really got over that. I think that's something that you live with till your life ends, and so I just feel that if people like that are overseas, it's your job to support them. Not job, it's your, I don't know, it's just the way you should be. You should support them, just as a human being.
Okay. How did you feel about the Kennedy assassination?
Well, that was an unbelievable shock, obviously. I mean, I can tell you, I think everybody can probably tell you where they were It was just after basketball practice at Colgate University, and we were all in the locker room, and I think the coach came in and told us, and we just couldn't believe it. We just sat there. It was like, it didn't matter whether he was a Democrat, Republican, or whatever he was. It just was something that was really, I don't know, it's just like it was totally out of the realm of possibility, and then here it was. It actually happened, and I remember they right away we had no school for the week, so or for the weekend, because it happened on a Friday on the 22nd of November in '63. So I would have been a junior at Colgate, and I remember we went to my roommate's house, and then I'll never forget where I was. It was Sunday morning, about 12 o'clock, 11:30, and we were riding through the toll booth on the New York Thruway when we heard on the radio that Oswald had been shot by Jack Ruby, and it just, I don't know, it just came to, it just didn't end. And then of course I remember the week with the services and all that, and it was almost surreal. It really was, that a president could get assassinated, and you know, especially in this day and age. And I think from that point on, from that day and age, from that point on, I mean, security just became much, much heavier.